Hello, everyone. It's nice having you here, and I hope you are going to join us on the group chat. And today we're going to talk with Amy Cosper, with whom I had the privilege to be introduced in 2014, I think, yes, in 2014 at Creative Business Cup. It was my first time I participated. Hi, Amy.
Good morning, or good afternoon for you guys.
How are you doing? How is Colorado?
It's lovely today. It's great. I mean, I'm still kind of in my pajamas. It's early here and I'm still drinking coffee, but I'm really happy to be able to talk with you.
Yeah, and we are really happy you have accepted to talk with us. Amy, I was introduced to your work much before we have met, because I am I'm a very interested person in entrepreneurship, so I was very committed fan for entrepreneur.com, and I know that you have worked a long time there. Could you tell me a little bit more about entrepreneur.com and the experience, because it must have been thrilling because you have worked there.
Yeah, I was really lucky in my career to happen to get a long stretch of time working for Entrepreneur. Just to be clear, I'm no longer there, but you know, in my time there, the thing that I learned, I mean, first of all, when you study entrepreneurship and small businesses and the people behind them, it is a very inspiring experience, because it teaches you that people are cool and anything is possible if you have resources, or even if you don't, and you've got fire in your belly. And so, you know, I left Entrepreneur, really, it sort of was like a very soothing to the soul experience, because you learn, you know, starting a business and entrepreneurship are not the easiest paths to take in life. In fact, they're very, very challenging. And, you know, the people who choose to just start, just take that first step, are really the coolest people in the world, which is why I really celebrate what you're doing in Moldova. I mean, when I met you, I was like, where is Moldova? I didn't know. I mean, I had to look on a map, but that you guys are embracing the idea and the concept of entrepreneurship is really, really awesome, and really, really, you know, it makes me smile. Like, it's just like, yes, you know, this is what needs to happen to change cultures and create economic opportunities for people. So I don't know that that answers your question, but you know, the whole idea and the notion when I was at Entrepreneur was, you know, we really wanted to not only inspire people, but provide tactical information and tactical content on how you take that first step. You know, that's the hardest part. Like, it's so easy to talk about entrepreneurship, but until you commit yourself to a vision, it's just a bunch of, you know, floaty ideas. So, you know, that's why what you're doing and sort of the movement across the world, really, why it's so exciting and so important to our global culture and our global economics. That was a long-winded answer, so I apologize.
No, I think it's very important, because once you are connected somehow to entrepreneurship, you understand all the struggles that you have to go through. And me being from a family of entrepreneurs, exactly after the Soviet times, when nobody was prepared for entrepreneurship. So it was for everyone, it was a path unknown, and it was a very difficult path. But for you, I know that you come from a tech environment, and it said, my father is also an engineer, so basically it says that most of the people that are tech, it's kind of hard, it's kind of easier for them to relate with entrepreneurs, because they're into the problem solving mode all the time, into the bug solving mode all the time. For you, why did you start writing about entrepreneurship? Because an easy job, and it's an industry that it's hard to develop, to start to communicate about entrepreneurship in a very accessible format, in a very clear format, so people understand you. For you personally, Why entrepreneurship? Why not go for tech only and talk to people about tech?
You know, I have never been asked that question, and it is a lovely, lovely question. I mean, I think the thing for me about entrepreneurship and about entrepreneurs and about the creative economies that are emerging, it's the stories that come out. Like when you're a writer, you're constantly on the lookout for really great stories. And entrepreneurship is one big giant blob of cool stories. And you know, for where you are in Moldova, with entrepreneurship, the challenge you're going to have is not just the starting part. It's a cultural and mental and psychological shift to really embracing, you know, your own destiny and your own. And I know that the word entrepreneur, even in Croatia, where I spoke a couple of years ago, you know, the younger crowd, the tech people, you know, even some of the food people really embrace the idea of, you know, creating your own future and being your own boss and getting out from under the man. But the older generation, the government people, really do not comprehend this. It is almost like saying you want to join the mafia, right? Like it's like, how could you even want to, you know, not do something for the government? So, you know, where we are in this country, you know, entrepreneurship is very much a part of our DNA, not just on the tech side of things, but agriculturally, you know, on the, you know, hospitality side. I mean, entrepreneurship is just very much American, and it's understood and embraced, but it wasn't always that way. You know, 35 years ago, if you went to your parents and said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, that meant you were just not going to have a job, right? But over the course of 35 years, the word entrepreneurship in this country, and I think it's starting to in yours as well, it means Richard Branson, right? Like it's the ultimate goal is to be, you know, this sexy entrepreneur with planes and, you know, like cool businesses. And so it really, like, it takes some time to get that mindset to shift. It is not going to happen overnight, but what you're doing is laying the foundation for this epic mind shift.
So I think you kind of brought to my next question. It was like you kind of have to identify role models, local people that have started and have had successes, and that have also the capacity and the ability to share their failures. How do we go further? Okay, we are identifying that. How do we start asking questions so they feel comfortable to talk about their failures? Because especially in a culture that's not that open to talk about mistakes, and you're kind of penalized from an early childhood if you do mistakes and so on. What would be that bridge that we stimulate us thinking of failing is okay and starting over is okay?
Exactly. And, you know, I know that it culturally, even when I was in, I just rode across Europe on my motorcycle, you know, the idea of failure, or even if you like crash your motorcycle in Europe, you kind of like pick it up and you don't talk about it, instead of, you know, like if you look at the topic of failure in the United States, failure in Silicon Valley is not only embraced, it is encouraged. There is an entire conference that celebrates failure. And I think for you guys, it's called FailCon. I'm not making that up. It's called FailCon. And I think for you guys and for your storytelling, and to get this idea to really take hold in Moldova and all of the region, really look to failure in the United States. Look to, you know, these unbelievably successful business people and the failures that they've had and the stories that they tell, so other people can learn the lessons. And I would strongly urge everyone to look into the story of Alexis Ohanian. He is the coolest guy. He's the founder of Reddit, and he's also soon to be married to Serena Williams, as a side note. He failed, you know, 3 or 4 times in Silicon Valley before launching successfully Reddit, which is just an epically beautiful success story. So maybe the way to do this, and I don't know that there's a, you know, what the actual tactics to do this would be, but if you bring over the stories of failure from the United States and tell them, to your entrepreneurs. Maybe it will make your role models in your communities and in your country more willing to, it's cool to fail. Like, I know it sounds insane, but here, failure is not looked at as, you're over, you're finished, you're never do. Failure is looked at as a lesson, right? And the lessons are to be shared. And that's kind of what happens with Fucked Up Nights, where you talk about your failures and embrace them. I mean, I personally have launched and failed at 3 different companies with cash burn that would be staggering. Would I change that? No. Every single thing I learned in all of my failures has brought me to where I am now. It's very important, and I'm not afraid to share those failures. I think it's just a part of, is our culture, first of all, but, just the ability and the willingness to look at case studies of other failures and the people behind them and share. I mean, it's very, and go to the fail.com website. I mean, it's just like, failure, it's a thing, it's one of those American trends. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a little bit like a more sensitive issue. It's with women. Women are more, let's say, they're more comfortable with taking a calculated risk, and they're not, according to the surveys and what we have come across, and the opinions and the feedbacks that we have through our women programs, it's that they're not very comfortable. They are even less comfortable with failing. And what other things you would suggest, like for women, maybe as a group, maybe as separate individuals, so they come kind of, it's going to be easier for them to accept failure, but also to learn from each other, and to support, to support them, each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to approach the topic, and it's, women as a whole of entrepreneurship, it's not a homogenous group. Everyone is different. Every individual is going to react to failure in a different way. But I think that the idea, and I'm a woman. I was working in a man's world for actually most of my career. And to me, it was like, well, I'm just going to be one of the guys, and I'll just blend, into the landscape. And, and I denied the fact that, it was pretty badass to be a woman working in a man's world. It was. And there was no reason for me to deny the fact that, I was a woman and probably needed more women support around me, like a network. And I think that if there are lots of ways to start these groups, and it doesn't have to be in a public forum, but it really does help to have other successful women who have failed in a controlled room environment, talking about the challenges, because you can't live your life denying failure. I mean, you can if you're Donald Trump, but I'm just kidding. I'm not going political here. But the more you talk about it, the more at ease you will become with the topic. And so I think if you, like with the work that you're doing, get content out there, create closed Facebook groups where people can really talk, openly about the challenges that they're facing. And, my other piece of advice, since I've done this so many times, and I say this to other women's groups, but, don't let the fact that you're a woman slow you down or trip you up, because it's like, if you view that fact as an obstacle, you're going to focus on it. And when you focus on an obstacle, like if I focus on a pothole when I'm on my motorcycle, what am I going to do? I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to crash and burn. And so don't focus on the obstacles, focus on the opportunities. And, I think the more conversations you create, and your community and your country really create, that's how you're going to get the change. That's how the groundswell is going to happen. So, I mean, I know that's just, very topical overview kinds of stuff, but it's an important question, because women make up a very important part of the workforce and of entrepreneurship. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm very passionate about that topic.
I agree that, for example, I have not recognized myself with the issue around women entrepreneurship for a long time, because I was at the same time, I was not asking for permission. I was moving on my way. And in my family, everybody is kind of connected with math and engineering and entrepreneurship. So people that are connected with those topics, they're not asking permission. They're doing, they're solving, and they're going. But I think there are easier ways to include women into the economy as entrepreneurs by actually providing some things for them, providing some support and recognizing their efforts, and also supporting their efforts as educators, as mothers. And I think I started understanding mother entrepreneurs better when I have become a mother. So that's why I'm bringing this topic into the agenda. Not that I'm trying to discriminate in any ways men, because I'm a mother of 2 men, but I would like women to be part of the scheme so they could support men entrepreneurs, and they could grow the economy, so everybody could benefit from that.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
I was just going to say, and can I just add one thing to that? Because it's a topic that I feel so strongly about. The moment you, and I don't want to be controversial here, but I'm just going to go there. The moment you start putting policy and government oversight onto these kinds of topics is generally the moment they cease to be effective. And so what you're talking about should absolutely be a grassroots effort. It shouldn't be policy. It shouldn't be, it should be grassroots. And a wonderful case study of women entrepreneurship is in Iceland. Like, if you turn to Iceland and look at what women have done and the equality they have demanded over the years and have eventually received, is a powerful, powerful lesson in female entrepreneurship. So I would urge you to look at the story of women in Iceland.
Yeah, they also keep the war going on because they fight also for economic equality and as employees as well. So I think, yes, Iceland is the best example of women empowerment.
Yeah, it is.
And I know, let's talk about something that connected us, Creative Business Camp. Mm-hmm. And how we can stimulate creatives, because creativity and design and innovation, taking your creative potential, is the disruptor of automatization, the disruptor of everything, and that's going to be the competitive advantage of many entrepreneurs if they know how to seize it. How do you think we can seize our potential of creativity, and how we can connect to different networks and work together?
I think, so first of all, as you know, Creative Business Cup is a real passion project of mine, because, and it's so hard to explain the profound nature of this conference if somebody hasn't been there. But the way it's a very poignant and touching conference. It's my favorite one of the whole entire year, because it's like sitting at the United Nations of creativity with all the countries represented, all the flags. I mean, every time I'm in that audience and all these startup kids are standing on stage with their country's flag, representing and creating, I mean, I get weepy. It is just the most moving experience. And I think that the movement that Rasmus and the GEM have created has so much momentum, and just the fact that the topic of the creative economy and the creative industries, it's becoming a thing, right? Like, it's becoming a viable, legitimate part of our economy, it is a global connector, where tech is not, where ag tech is not, where fashion is not. The creative culture is the uniter, and like, not just a uniter on the touchy-feely side, but on the economic side. And so I think the more we can get stories like what you're doing out in the mainstream and really create this movement, which is what this is, the more the word is going to get out, and the more successful we will all be in championing the topic of creatives and the importance to our culture and economy and everything, our happiness. Our happiness is relying on you. You must fix it.
And that's exactly why I love Creative Business Cup and also creative industries, because they connect deeply and profoundly through our senses and through our humanity. And I think that's really needed, especially in these extreme times when we can see that there is so much exaggeration of many things happening in the world. And I don't want to point fingers, but this is quite dangerous, and let's say globally, for the political environment and for the peace environment. So I think through creative entrepreneurship, we can start connecting people, and people are going to be more reluctant to fight each other if they can work together in global businesses, in global creative businesses. So there is a huge peace-making factor in this. For me, it's also very, very important. I know maybe you have seen, but we are running the competition right now, creative business competition in Moldova. What would you suggest as one of the jury members to creative entrepreneurs worldwide and for Moldovan entrepreneurs, how they can prepare to pitch it? Because most of them are very connected emotionally with what they are doing. Yeah. Because creatives usually do their work as a form of their expression, their soulful expression. But what would you suggest as a jury member? What should they do in a way to be able to speak their message to the jury members and also to the world? Because even if they will not be among the finalists, they will have a message to the world.
So here, like, I've been a jury member for a long time with the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and the thing I experienced the most with the pitches is that some of them lack clarity, right? So when you're preparing your pitches for the jury, and you'll go through a series of coaching and mentoring, but the most important thing is to be able to state clearly what your mission is in 3 sentences or less, right? And why it is tied into the creative economy. I mean, so the creative industries can be a little floaty to define, right? Like, because anything is creative, like, but at the end of the day, the creative industries are dedicated to really kind of the makers, the arts, the designers. I mean, last year the winner was from Germany, and it was the product was like a big giant cement sculpture that has moss all over it that cleans the air. So it's not only a beautiful piece of art, it's also solving pollution problems. And so, to be able to say why your product or your service is creative and the problem that it's solving, or the solution that it's bringing, is very, very important to a pitch. The other thing is, and this is to your point, I've seen a lot of pitches overcome with passion and lacking logic. So I think, and this is just a practical thing, when you step in front of your jury members, confidence, like, you have to be confident and clear-headed, because the passion is going to bubble up and your head's going to explode and you'll lose your message. So it's practice. It just takes a lot of practice to accomplish that. But really, the clarity of vision and why you should be considered in the creative industries are 2 challenges I have every single year with pitches.
You have mentioned, and I have seen, like, lately in many competitions, the aspect of sustainability is very maintained and is very supported. So I think it's becoming a worldwide trend that people are getting educated with regards to trends in entrepreneurship development and in business modeling and so on. If we could talk a little bit more about the trends, because I'm sure you have seen other startups pitch, and what would be other trends that we can see worldwide developing?
So, I mean, sustainability is probably the #1 trend. The other one that, you know, is not new, but is still very much a part of this community is the social aspect. So what is your social give back strategy? Like what do you stand for? What is important to you and your idea? You know, we've had people who part of their idea, 20% of their profits would go to, you know, certain social efforts and ecological efforts. So I would say those two are absolutely the most prevalent, and there's always the, you know, the more humanitarian give back strategies as well. And so the other one is, so in the creative industries, you know, no matter what your product is or what the pitch is, always leaning in somehow in your business plan on technology. Like, what is your, okay, so you make these, you know, what does your supply chain look like? What is your what technology are you going to use to manage your inventory? So like knowing what that is crucial to not only pitch a jury member, but to pitch a venture capitalist or an investor. So, you know, that's the great thing about these pitch competitions, is they're really good practice for going out and getting investors. So, you know, it should be approached in that way as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I want to mention one. It's sustainability, social, and technology, and the capacity to see it as its investment potential. So we named the 4 trends, the most important. We were talking before about media. And do you see, because I know that many print media are failing. I just shifted like right away from Creative Business Cup, because media is also a creative industry and you have so much practice in that. And what do you think, because that was a question that came in from one of my colleagues, and she asked me, what do you think are going to be the trends for media and innovation in media? Because, and the other question was, is print media going to die completely, or do they have a standing chance? And if they do, what should they do about that?
Well, that's a big question. First of all, I don't.
From the audience from Facebook.
Yeah, I don't think print media is going to die. I hope that it doesn't, because I'm deeply attached to, you know, the experience of print media. But it's changing, and the way I look at it is there will always be a demand for great content. The distribution may change, but there will always be a demand. And the analogy is, you know, there will always be a demand for great music. Maybe it's not on a record, maybe it's not on a cassette tape, maybe it's not on a CD, maybe it's, you know, on an MP3, but the music, you know, will never die. And that's how I feel about great content. The medium may change, but the content won't. So it's more a question of, you know, where is media going? Where is content going is the question that I would ask. I mean, what is the delivery mechanism going to be? And it, you know, appears that, I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's a digital play, but that doesn't mean that content has to be, you know, a bunch of clickbait out there. I think the clickbait stuff is actually gonna go away. And I think for you guys and for your content strategy, you know, the easiest, like, don't even start with a print product. I mean, that is just ass backwards. Like it's the costs are prohibitive, the margins are tiny. But if you look at, you know, the audience you can build with a digital platform, it's epic. You know, it's epic. Your reach is much. It's like when we were talking about entrepreneur.com. I mean, people from all over the world go there to get information. There's nothing that precludes you from creating a similar model, especially to get your story out, which nobody knows about. You know, like your story needs to be told to the world.
It's a different context, so I think the context also creates, shapes the content, so it's going to be fit for the context and for the circumstances that entrepreneurs in our part of the world are facing.
Right.
Yeah, the other question is What's been your proudest achievement as such an immensely accomplished entrepreneur and media person?
Okay, so sorry, can you repeat that? That's a three-part question. What's the first part?
What's been your proudest achievement as such an immensely accomplished entrepreneur and media person?
Well, my greatest accomplishment, of course, I have to say that is my children. The most defining moment of my life and my career was when my house burned down in a forest fire 4 years ago, and it was a journey that was there were a lot of lessons that came out of it, a lot of business lessons that came out of it. Just about, we rebuilt, and you know, it's a happy ending and all of this, but it was very defining. And after the fire, you know, my perspective on everything in life changed, and my actual personal story changed, and the achievements that I've made career-wise are eclipsed by the growth I've made as a human, you know, through these different experiences. So I know that's kind of a Oprah Winfrey sounding answer, but it really is the
I think it's very important. It's very defining moments that it's like at the bridge of everything, and I think it's just exactly what people are redefined on all dimensions and all aspects.
Yeah, and I think that your culture and Moldova is a lot like that, because you know, you have not had an easy history. You have a very young workforce, and I think that the lessons that we need to teach the younger set of people is that, you know, you have these moments that define you, but they don't have to define you forever. You have to move past it and you know, move toward much higher, better goals, and you know, be much more egalitarian. And so I'm not trying to be sappy, boo-hoo here, but I think it's really important for your young people and the women in your country to know that, you know, the past doesn't define you. You define your future.
Thank you, Amy. It was a very interesting conversation for me. If you have a question, like, and you want to have a statement, just ask or just say it at the end of this very interesting journey for me in our discussion.
Well, I want to thank you because, you know, you have opened my eyes. Actually, all of the Balkan area, like I'm constantly surprised by the inspiring things that are going on. And so I am so grateful to you, and I'm so celebrating what you're doing and wishing you so much success on this very challenging journey that you have chosen. And I am here to support you and your country as much as I can. I believe in what you're doing.
Thank you, and hope to see you in Moldova quite soon. We hope to see you in the fall.
Me too. Best of luck to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.